Throttle-equipped city bikes have been growing increasingly popular over the past few years. But interestingly, mainstream legacy bike brands have yet to join in on the frenzy. That is, until now. Meet the all-new Trek FX+1, Trek's first Class 2 throttle-actuated e-bike. And in a way, that sort of makes Trek, one of the biggest bicycle manufacturers in the world, the underdog against scrappy startups like Rad and Aventon. So, can Trek's half-century of experience in the cycling industry disrupt this new sector, or are they showing up too late to the direct-to-consumer party? Well, I've been spending the last few weeks on the FX+1, and spoiler alert, I think they nailed it. Let's start with a brief overview of the bike. The FX+1 lists for $2,099, which is essentially right in line with its direct-to-consumer counterparts. To be honest, that's super impressive, especially considering the big jump you're going to get in customer service that comes with purchasing from a local bike shop. But I'll get more into that later in the video. The FX+1 is available as both a traditional step-over frame and a mid-step, with a full-size run for each, which is again something you don't often see from the more budget-oriented options it's positioned against. In terms of weight, my size large came in at around 49 pounds or 22.2 kilograms, which is quite a bit lighter than many of its competitors. That said, its 500-watt hub drive motor and 520 watt-hour battery are on the smaller side. Lastly, it's worth noting that the FX+1 is available as a Class 2 bike, where both the pedal assist and the throttle is limited to 20 miles per hour, and a Class 3 bike that allows the pedal assist to go up to 28 miles per hour. Sadly, those settings are hardwired into the bike's motor and drive unit, so it's not something that you can switch should you plan to ride the bike in various locations under different e-bike laws. Trek also sells the bike under its lifestyle brand, Electra, as the new Townie Go Plus, which is effectively the same platform with a classic cruiser styling and riding position. So those are the broad strokes, but let's zoom in a little closer and see what makes this FX+1 different from some other bikes on the market. At the heart of the bike is an aluminum frame with fully internal cable routing and a down-tube integrated battery. This gives the bike a super clean aesthetic, but does have the potential to make maintenance a bit trickier, and sadly, the battery can't be removed for charging. Unsurprisingly, the bike also has rack and fender compatibility and has a maximum cargo load of 300 pounds, including the rider. One other thing you'll see here is Trek's proprietary through-skew axle in both the rear and front hub, which is said to increase stiffness and help with brake alignment. Speaking of brakes, you do get a pair of hydraulic disc brakes from Rush, mated to some 180mm rotors, and a 1x8 Shimano ACE drivetrain, the latter of which being one of the biggest highlights for me. Shifts were consistently smooth and precise, even under heavy load, something that's not always the case at this price point. Another highlight for me was Trek's decision to downsize the wheels on this FX+1 to 650B. The standard FX Plus has 700C wheels. I think for this application, the smaller wheels feel like the right call. It makes the bike lighter, easier to handle, and more approachable for newer riders. Tire-wise, you get a pair of Bontrager GR0 comps, which rolled quick on tarmac and had just enough tread on the shoulders for the occasional off-road adventure. Lastly, the FX+1 gets integrated front and rear lighting, with the rear light doubling as a turn signal. All in all, I had more or less zero quips about the components found here on the FX+1. Where my complaints start to arise just a little bit though is in what's not found here. You don't get a lot of the creature comforts, like a digital security system or USB charging port for your devices, that you do get on some of Trek's competitors. To me, those are more than just gimmicks. And if I lived in an urban environment and was planning to get an e-bike to use as my daily driver, then those would be real selling points. Like I mentioned earlier, the FX+1 is powered by a 500 watt-hour hub drive motor delivering 60 Nm of torque in 3 power delivery modes, Eco, Mid, and High. On paper, that puts this bike kind of in the middle ground between full power options like the Rad Power Bike's Radster and more stripped down, scaled back bikes like the Ride One Up Roadster. Now, there are a couple benefits that come from the slimmed down motor and battery. Biggest of those is weight. Like I already mentioned, this bike is under 50 pounds. Another thing that I appreciated was how quiet the motor was, even in its highest mode. And despite the lower torque figures, the bike still packed plenty of punch on steep climbs and when accelerating from a standstill. Speaking of acceleration, the motor's ramp up felt remarkably smooth, with none of the jerky surges that can sometimes plague more entry-level hub drive bikes. Now, that motor is powered by a 520 watt-hour battery that's hidden fully in the down tube. As you can see, that gives the bike a clean, classic aesthetic and helps protect the battery from the elements. Another neat feature here is Trek's Easy Mag magnetic charger, which works like Apple's MagSafe. Connecting the charger to the battery is literally as easy as placing the magnetic end up against the circular port. And since the charger pushes out 2.7 amps, you can refill the bike's battery from 0% to full in under 5 hours. As for battery range, Trek claims that you can get 50 miles on a charge, which I'm sure may be true if you're a lighter weight rider and predominantly using the eco mode, but I routinely saw figures closer to 30 to 40 miles. For context, I weigh about 200 pounds and was using a mix of mid and high power and the occasional throttle use. But I think that for most people, even that 30-ish mile range should be more than acceptable. Lastly, the FX+1 comes with a small, full-color bar-mounted display. The onboard metrics are relatively limited, essentially just speed, odometer, and an estimated range. For those of us who like to nerd out a bit more, the Trek Central app does not disappoint. There you can fine-tune the motor's output for each assistance mode, customize various battery charging settings, and even get turn-by-turn navigation that factors in the bike's remaining range. Like the display, the hand controls were simple and intuitive, with 2 large buttons on the side of the display to switch between assist levels and a thumb-actuated throttle mounted straight below the bar. There are also turn indicator buttons on the opposite side of the bike. So now that you have a good grasp on what the bike consists of, let's get on to what really matters, and that's how it feels to ride. Like I've alluded to already, the motor really impressed me. 60 Nm of torque sounds modest, but in practice, it never felt underpowered. Eco mode was plenty for cruising, and bumping up into the higher settings made quick work of steep climbs or fast commutes across town. The group set was solid as well, making the bike super intuitive even for more novice riders. I also appreciated the nice balance of sportiness and efficiency without feeling overly aggressive. The riding position was comfortable for long rides, but at the same time, didn't feel overly upright and lethargic if you really wanted to put the power down. That said, it's not the most comfortable bike on the market. The rigid aluminum fork and 50mm tires do a good job of keeping the weight down and rolling efficiency high, but they also transmit plenty of feedback from the road. On cracked pavement or rougher gravel paths, the ride can feel harsh compared to bikes that use suspension forks or higher volume tires. That's a trade-off that makes sense for more city and urban riding, but if you do plan to regularly ride off-road, then it's something to keep in mind. All in all, I'd say the Trek FX+1 is a throttle-equipped e-bike for people who appreciate the nuance of cycling. It feels like you're riding a bicycle, not a moped, and that alone sets it apart from a lot of other Class 2 bikes on the market. Speaking of other bikes on the market, the FX+1 does have a good deal of competition, and arguably its biggest competitor is going to be the new Rad Power Bikes Radster that came out last year. On price, the Radster narrowly takes the win, coming in at $1,999, $100 less than the Trek. Rad also comes out on top when you look at the eDrive system. The Radster's hub drive motor has more power and more torque, as well as a larger 720 watt-hour battery that can be removed. Lastly, Rad has made a point of loading its latest bikes with user-friendly features, including a digital security system, USB charging for devices, and even the ability to switch between e-bike classes on the fly. Those creature comforts are noticeably absent from the Trek. But the FX1 has plenty of tricks up its sleeve as well. At just under 50 pounds, it's around 30 pounds less than the Radster, making it far easier to lift upstairs or maneuver in tight spaces. Trek also has the upper hand when you look at frame quality and sizing. Yes, the FX+1 has that clean internal cable routing that makes the bike look really good, but more importantly, that bike you see behind me, you can choose it in one of 4 different sizes. That's twice as many as you get from Rad. Just means it's going to be that much easier to find a bike that's going to fit you perfectly. Another place where Trek stands apart from not just Rad, but honestly most other Class 3 e-bike manufacturers is their sales and service model. Rad's direct-to-consumer approach keeps sticker prices low, but it also leaves assembly, troubleshooting, and long-term maintenance squarely on the buyer. Trek, on the other hand, relies on its established bike shop network, which means you'll get the FX+1 professionally assembled and backed by the full support system provided by your local bike shop. For riders who value peace of mind and long-term reliability, that's a significant advantage and one of the clearest wins for Trek. In the end, both of these bikes, the FX+1 and the Radster, are going to offer different things to different customers. The Radster delivers more features and a more powerful motor, while the FX+1 wins on weight, fit, and the backing of Trek's established dealer network. What's clear though is that Trek has certainly showed up to the table with a competitive product. And that makes me wonder, if Trek is having success in this throttle-actuated market, how long will it be before we see other mainstream legacy bike brands join in as well? In the end, the Trek FX+1 feels like a square of high-quality dark chocolate in a market full of Kit Kats and Snickers. It doesn't have all the fancy features and creature comforts of the new guard of urban e-bikes, but in my opinion, the refinement and brand reputation that comes with the bike more than make up for it. I'm also really impressed by the value. Usually, B2C brands like Trek cost quite a bit more than direct-to-consumer options like Rad or Aventon because they go through a distributor and have a big in-person bike shop. But the Trek being just $100 than its closest competitor from Rad is, again, really impressive. So if you're in the market for a throttle-actuated e-bike but still prefer the look and ride feel of a more traditional bike, or you just prefer buying through a local bike shop versus online, then the FX+1 is a solid option. If you have any more questions about the bike behind me, or just e-bikes in general, then you can leave those in the comments and I'd love to get you an answer. I'll also leave a link to the FX+1 in the description, so you can check that out if you want to get more details or, of course, purchase the bike for yourself. Thanks as always for tuning in, and remember that bikes are for everyone. Have fun out there.